Deaf girl sold for just one by her dad. Rancher's amazing discovery changed everything forever. The scorching Texas sun beat down on the ranch, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. Lily felt those shadows wrap around her like a blanket of isolation. She was deaf, a silence wrapped in noise, watching as her father barked orders to the ranch hands. The horses, the cattle, they all seemed to understand him better than she ever could. Each day was a battle. She was a burden, a disappointment, someone her father couldn't comprehend. And today, the weight of that truth was heavier than ever. In the barn, where the scent of hay mixed with the bitter tang of metal, Lily sat on the ground, fingers gliding over the smooth surface of a small stone she'd found. She often found solace in creation. Mud and clay became her refuge, a way to express a world that felt so far from her grasp. But today was different. Today, the air was thick, charged with an unspoken tension. She had overheard whispered conversations between her father and visiting neighbors, her heart sinking as fragments of their words cut through her like the barbed wire fence surrounding the property. "I can't keep her," her father had said, his voice falling like stones on Lily's heart. $1 is all she is worth. The thought that her own father could put a price on her life shattered something deep inside her. There was no way to describe the conflicting emotions swirling in her chest, a cocktail of anger, desperation, and disbelief. How could he see her so differently? She was more than a disability. She felt the artistry in her soul, the drive to show the world who she truly was, but nobody seemed to care. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her father's decision felt like a roaring storm inside her, tearing at the seams of her identity. How could he not see her? Outside, the horses whinnied, their empathetic were ringing in her ears. They understood her pain, the bond of silence between them stronger than any words her father couldn't muster. Should she confront him? Or was it futile, a fruitless effort wrestling with the shadows of his stubborn pride? Tangled emotions clawed at her. If she ran away, where would she go? The vast expanse of the ranch felt like both a prison and a refuge, a place that held the ghosts of her father's expectations and the whisper of her ungrasped dreams. It was then that the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Thompson, his gentle eyes filled with understanding. The world beyond her father's grasp could hold more than abandonment. But as Mr. Thompson approached, a flicker of hope ignited, a soft glimmer of what could be drowning in the tidal wave of anguish and betrayal. Would the silence be her voice, or would it leave her reeling in the dark? The shadows continued to close in as her father's choices loomed larger than ever, trapping her in an unsettling fear of loss. The clock ticked dangerously close to the moment of irrevocable change, and Lily stood on the edge, silently screaming, desperate for someone to hear her. What would happen if she lost everything, including herself? Lily's heart raced as Mr. Thompson stepped inside the barn, his presence offering a rare comfort amidst the chaos swirling around her. She had always sensed his ability to listen, even beyond the barrier of her silence. As he knelt down beside her, she recognized that this was her moment to convey everything, to pull from the depths of her despair and articulate her truth through her art. The stone in her hand became a symbol of her strength, the beginning of something bold. "Lily," Mr. Thompson's hands moved gracefully, forming words with purpose. "I've noticed how you transform your feelings into your creations. You have talent, a voice that needs to be heard." His encouragement ignited a spark in her chest. The idea that she could be more than a mere object of her father's disdain began to crystallize into a fierce determination. With every stroke of clay, she would sculpt her own narrative, one that no longer revolved around her father's bitterness or ignorance. She presented her stone forward, demonstrating her intent. Mr. Thompson, sensing her urgency, nodded for her to continue. They exchanged gestures, a silent dance of understanding as she unleashed the torrent of emotions pent up inside her. The weight was lessened, transformed into art as her fingers molded the clay into the shape of a horse, a creature she often admired for its grace and freedom. "I wish I could be like them," she sighed, her hands trembling with the gravity of her thoughts. Free from this place, from his judgment. Mr. Thompson watched intently, his expression shifting from concern to resolve. In his world, he was an advocate for those silenced by circumstance. You have the power to change your narrative, Lily. You must find your voice and use it, even if it isn't spoken. His words resonated the notion that her silence wasn't an absence but a canvas, one that allowed her to express herself in ways others had failed to see. The thought alone bolstered her spirit. She could share her creations, her stories, with the world beyond the ranch. His reaction was genuine, a flicker of inspiration igniting hope within her restless heart. Let us share your art, he proposed. Others need to see what you can create. Together we can begin to change how people view you, view anyone different. Lily's heart surged at the idea, an uncharted path unfolding before her. It was no longer just about escape, it was about empowerment. What if she could shift the narrative, presenting herself as someone of worth, expression, and dignity? What would it take for her father to see her as she saw herself? As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the barn, Lily felt a determined calm settle over her. She could reach for more, a life painted with colors beyond mere survival. The challenge ahead would be daunting, but no longer did she fear the shadows, she saw them as an invitation to illuminate her truth. I'm ready, she signed firmly, a declaration that echoed beyond the walls of the barn. But as her resolve solidified, a nagging doubt crept into her thoughts. Could she truly stand against her father? Would he welcome her newfound confidence or fear it? The looming confrontation with her father danced at the edge of her mind, a revelation she knew she would have to face sooner or later. The time had come to reclaim her story and confront the very man who had sought to silence her. Would she be able to find the strength within herself to do it, or would the fear of losing everything overwhelm her once again? The barn was alive with the sounds of nightfall, the distant rustle of hay settling and the soft whinny of horses in their stalls. Yet, as the tranquil ambience enveloped her, Lily felt a storm brewing within. The commitment she had just made reverberated through her mind, overshadowed by the image of her father's face. For years, his discontent had been a constant dark cloud, looming ever watchful. He never acknowledged her, not in words or actions, and she had spent far too long seeking his approval, bleeding her creativity in the process. Now, with her creativity becoming her lifeline, the stakes had never felt higher. The following days were a frenzy of ideas. Each morning, as the sun's first rays stretched into the barn, Lily awoke with renewed vigor. With Mr. Thompson's encouragement echoing in her mind, she delved deeper into her art. Her fingers moved deftly across the clay, shaping forms that reflected her inner battles and moments of triumph. Each creation became a fragment of her truth, the unspoken conversations she longed to have. Amid this flourishing, however, doubt still shadowed her resolve. The notion of confronting her father haunted her late at night, stealing the precious hours she could spend visualizing her art's impact. Like a ghost, it whispered insecurities, reminding her of his rage and disdain. Lily! Her father bellowed one evening, his voice surging through the house like a tornado. She stiffened, the air turning cold. She had almost forgotten the way her heart sank at his approach. What sort of nonsense are you getting into? She hesitated at the threshold of the barn, her clay-stained hands trembling. It would be so simple to suppress her art, to retreat back into silence, but that path had led her nowhere. I'm creating, she signed, determination glimmering in her eyes. I'm expressing who I am. The words danced in the air, each movement deliberate, powerful. Her father's brow furrowed deeply. Expressing what? You think this art is going to change who you are in my eyes? You've always been my daughter, not some artist. His venomous words stung as surely as a physical blow. She watched him, her heart racing. His anger pulsed like an animal ready to attack. But instead of cowering, something deep within her stirred. No, she signed, slower this time, her hands moving with authority. I am not just your daughter. I am Lily. An artist. I will not be hidden away anymore. His shocked silence felt like a victory, but the victory was short-lived. Uncertainty churned in her. Could this be the moment she found her strength? Or would it falter under the weight of his disapproval? What if he unleashed a fury she wasn't prepared to face? Days turned into weeks, and Lily grew stronger with every piece she molded. Yet, with each sculpted form, the impending confrontation loomed larger. She needed to organize an exhibition of her art as Mr. Thompson suggested, a brave venture that would lay bare her soul to the world. With every piece, she pondered how to stand firm against her father's reaction, the thought both exhilarating and terrifying. On an overcast day, with clouds promising rain, she felt a simultaneous thrill and dread about the impending unveiling of her work. The day was drawing closer, and so too was the inevitable conversation with her father. Little did she know that with each moment of preparation, she was forging a shield against the darkest parts of her past. Would it be enough to withstand the storm that was about to break? And as she put the final touches on her latest piece, a flicker of dread rippled through her. The exhibition day was not just about showcasing her creations, but about showcasing her very self. Could she confront her father openly about her art, or would that act cement her fate within the confines of his narrow view? The sun broke through the clouds for a moment, casting a spotlight over her crafted works, and for the first time, Lily felt how bright she could truly shine. But the day ahead held uncertainties, and with it loomed the question that would define her journey. Would she be brave enough to confront her father, or would she retreat once more into the shadows? The dawn of the exhibition day was cloaked in an uneasy gray, the chill in the air a stark contrast to the warmth radiating from her focused determination. Lily stood in front of her creations, a collection of sculptures that felt like a living diary of her battles, fears, and triumphs. Each piece was a manifestation of her survival, a testament to the strength she had unearthed within. However, the impending weight of her father's reaction loomed heavier than the clouds overhead. The barn, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage set for a confrontation she hadn't entirely prepared for. As the hours ticked closer to the unveiling, her heart thumped loudly in her chest, a persistent reminder of the stakes involved. How could she share this part of herself without fearing his judgment? The question lingered ominously, intertwining with the thrill of anticipation. She had already defied his expectations by choosing to express her identity not as a rancher's daughter, but as an artist. Yet, doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps her courage could only stretch so far. Seeking solace, she found herself wandering through the barn, taking in the comforting sights, the hay scattered about, the gentle horses swinging in their stalls, and the sunlight now daring to break through the clouds. It reminded her of the simple joys that had been overshadowed by years of anxiety and fear. She paused to admire a vibrant piece depicting a wild stallion, capturing not only its form but also the spirit of freedom. It was an embodiment of her own desire to break free from the constraints that had long defined her. "Will this be enough?" she whispered, more to herself than to anyone around. The question felt like an echo of her father's disbelief, his scornful dismissal looming large in her mind. With an exhale that steadied her resolve, she made her way back to her sculptures, focusing on each one. This was her moment not just to showcase her art, but to reclaim her life. The thought of confronting her father was enough to make her hands shake, but she refused to let that fear dictate her actions any longer. The hours dragged on, each tick of the clock steeped in tension, until at last, people began arriving. Friends, neighbors, and those who had supported her growth mingled beneath the barn's rustic charm. Jokes floated in the air, laughter weaving a fabric of comfort around her. Yet, amidst the joy, her gaze constantly flickered to the entrance, anticipating the arrival of the one person whose approval she had sought for so long. When he finally entered, his presence transformed the atmosphere, steeping it with a palpable tension. Her stomach churned as her heart raced. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Are you ready, Lily?" Mr. Thompson asked, sensing the conflict that marred her excitement. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, her voice firm, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her nerves. The moment had come. As Lily stood before her creations, the crowd's applause echoed around her like a warm blanket, but they were mere background noise to the thunder of her heart. And then, she turned to her father, a torrent of emotions swirling within her. There was no hiding anymore. The time has come to face him, she thought, her body preparing for the confrontation she had both craved and dreaded. Would his skepticism drown her, or could she withstand the downpour and rise above it? Just as she stole a glance in his direction, a sudden shout from the crowd shattered the moment, redirecting her focus and pulling her into an unexpected urgency. "Look at that piece! It's incredible!" In the fleeting moment of distraction, Lily felt the tide of her determination swell within her once more. the call of her artistic spirit fierce against the horizon of her father's expectations. But now she had to make a choice. Would she seize this opportunity to guide the conversation toward her truth, or would the moment slip away, leaving her to grapple with the weight of unspoken words? The answer was impatiently beckoning, begging her to act. Lily's heart raced, thundering in tandem with the palpable energy of the room as she turned back to her sculptures. Each piece shimmered with the sweat of her labor, the love of her craft. But the cries of admiration from the crowd felt distant, fading below the surface noise of her self-doubt. Confrontation loomed like a dark cloud, hiding behind loyal friends and supportive faces. She could sense the anticipation crackling in the air around her, the tension of what was about to unfold. Yet her father stood there, arms crossed, his expression a granite sculpture that offered no hints of approval or disapproval. Focus, she thought fervently, shaking her head slightly as if to dispel the justifications that her mind conjured. This was not about him, it was about her journey and the bold step she had taken towards claiming her identity. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her nervousness transforming into a guided energy, as if she were directing every part of herself towards the moment that had finally arrived. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steadying as she forced a smile. The room quieted, and all eyes turned toward her. "Today, I'd like to share my sculptures with you." With each piece she introduced, her initial fears began to fade. She described her inspirations, her struggles, and the vulnerability each sculpture had demanded. The stories poured out of her like the very essence of her soul, interwoven with raw moments of her life that had once been marred by fear. She pointed towards the wild stallion sculpture, recalling the summer she had spent riding free through the plains, a time when her spirit soared above the weight of her father's expectations. "This represents the freedom I yearn for," she confessed, her stare breaking through the crowd to meet her father's. The silence thickened as she turned, locking eyes with him. This time, she was ready. "I created these to show that there's more to me than what you believe," she voiced, emboldened by the moment and the warmth of her friends' glances. "Every piece tells my story, and it's not just about what I do here, it's about who I am becoming." His brow furrowed, and for the briefest second, she thought she saw him blink with something akin to recognition. But doubt crept into her thoughts again. Would this be enough? The crowd's appreciation began to crescendo, but the confrontation within her heart raged on. She could either stand her ground or wrap herself in the comforting curtain of self-doubt, allowing her father's potential criticism to drown her momentum. Moments ticked by, and she could feel the weight of the air coloring the atmosphere with unspoken tension. The acceptance she craved from him felt tantalizingly close, yet she remained rooted in uncertainty. Finally, she summoned all her courage. "Dad," she called out, her voice slicing through the murmurs, "I hope you can see me today." An expectant pause enveloped them. The crowd waited, breath held in anticipation alongside her unsteady hopes. She noticed his expression flicker, an inner battle brewing behind those sharp eyes. Then, the unexpected happened. He stepped forward, slowly shaking his head as if to dismiss a long-held belief. "Lily, I..." Before he completed his sentence, another voice piped up from the crowd. "These are stunning. But what's your next move, Lily? Will you make more?" His words were eclipsed by the crackle of excitement igniting among her friends, but they left a lingering question hanging in her mind. Would her art evolve? Could she carve out a new path that expanded beyond this lone exhibition and into a future that challenged not only herself but her father's perception of who she was? As the applause surged, Lily felt a resolute surge of determination envelop her. Today was not just about showcasing her art, it was the start of a dialogue she was ready to have. With every heartbeat, she knew the stakes had risen. But what would her father's response be, and could this be the spark that ignited a new chapter in both of their lives? The air shimmered with anticipation as she braced for whatever came next, realization dawning this had only just begun. Lily stood in the dimming light, the murmurs of the crowd still ricocheting in her mind like fragments of glass. Each compliment flared her confidence momentarily, only to be dulled by the weight of her father's unresolved gaze fixed upon her. He had not verbally responded, but the questions brimming in her heart demanded action. As the applause faded, she could feel the warmth of her friends enveloping her in celebration, but her thoughts strayed beyond their joyous chatter. The insistence of an unexpressed truth loomed larger than the artistic triumph she knew she had achieved. She had bared her soul through art, yet the dialogue with her father was painfully incomplete, hanging in the air like an unfinished sculpture. Stepping away from the crowd, she sought solace at the edge of the gathering. Surrounded by her sculptures, she marveled at her artistic creations that had transformed the room. They stood resolute, every curve told a narrative about struggle, hope, and rebirth. Yet despite their strength, she felt her own uncertainty creeping back. What am I really capable of? She whispered to herself, battling the doubt spiraling through her mind. The support of friends was comforting, but the approval of her father felt pivotal. She needed to know if he could see the girl behind the art, if he could acknowledge her growth beyond the expectations he'd long imposed. Exiting the cheers and laughter, she slipped outside into the quiet of the evening. The cool air brushed against her hot cheeks, grounding her as she inhaled the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with fading sunlight. She took a moment to gather her thoughts, envisioning the wild stallion she had sculpted, the embodiment of her yearning for freedom and authenticity. Could she truly break free from the confines of her father's perceptions? The battle within was as much an art project as her sculptures. Every emotion shaped a fundamental piece of her identity. The newfound recognition of her worth inspired her to reconsider how her art could evolve, not just for her but also as a conduit for dialogue about her life and relationships. With a sudden flicker of clarity, she felt the urge to experiment with new forms. What if her next pieces were interactive? What if she utilized varied mediums to express elements of her journey, mixing clay with found objects, drawing out the narrative of her transformation? Each piece could explore themes beyond traditional artistry, tantalizing potential interpretations, and challenge preconceived notions, but that thought inevitably circled back to her father. Could he even comprehend such a shift? Would he be willing to embrace the evolution of not just her art but also their relationship? The question brought with it a wave of anxiety. The dialogue she craved would require both vulnerability and strength, a leap of faith that terrified her. As she turned to re-enter the exhibition, she was met with the sight of her father standing at the doorway, his silhouette stark against the glow from inside. The distant echo of laughter turned into an anxious thrum in her chest. This moment crystallized a decision in her mind: she needed to speak to him, really speak. Extending her hand, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for the encounter. She was ready to explore not just her artistry but the artistry of their relationship, spinning it into something vibrant, dynamic, and entirely renewed. "Dad," she began, stepping into clarity and resolve, "there is so much more I want to share with you." But before she could finish her thought, a sudden roar of laughter erupted from behind her, catching her off guard. She turned to see one of her friends tugging another into the exhibit, sparking the interest of those still gathered. The joyful intrusion broke the tension, yet the pivotal conversation she was poised to have with her father receded momentarily, leaving a churning anticipation in its wake. What would happen now? Would she gather the courage to push beyond the surface and forge the deeper connection she so desperately needed? Every fiber in her being urged her to engage, but uncertainty loomed heavy. She felt the magnetic pull between possibility and fear, realization dawning that she was now navigating a landscape where both her artistry and her identity could coexist. As her heart hummed in her chest and her father's eyes reflected concern, she took her first step forward. Would this be the moment that changed everything? Lily took another breath, stepping further into the light, the laughter of her friends puncturing the tension yet holding a bittersweet edge. The warmth of their joy felt far removed from the storm brewing within her, pulling her in opposing directions. She turned back toward her father, the weight of his gaze still solid against the shifting chaos of the room. "Do you want to see my favorite piece next?" she offered half-heartedly, hoping to bridge the distance that currently felt insurmountable. He nodded, thoughtful, his brow furrowed as if weighing the significance of the moment against the backdrop of their shared history. As she led him to the large installation at the center, she couldn't help but feel the echo of her ambitions pulsating within the creation. It was her homage to resilience, a giant, intricate phoenix, its wings spread wide, was made with shards of recycled glass and metal, a statement of rebirth from brokenness. The melding of materials symbolized her journey of self-discovery and the connections she sought to forge. "It's beautiful," her father finally said, the sincerity in his voice cutting through her rising anxiety. But the uncertainty lingered, dancing in the space between them, waiting for the right moment to leap. "I wanted to try something new," she explained, her voice steadier than before, emboldened by his appreciation. "This is about more than just creation. It speaks to struggles that I've faced and feel that I'm still facing. His gaze remained entrenched on the phoenix, and she seized the opportunity to probe further. "Do you understand what I'm trying to express?" The question lingered, suspended as layers of uncertainty unraveled and unfurled into the air. Her father shifted slightly, his expression almost unreadable. "I see the talent. I see the effort. But I'm not sure I see the message." The honesty felt both piercing and clarifying. Here lay an invitation, a chance to unearth the dialogue she had long buried beneath layers of expectation. "Maybe because I haven't shown it yet," she replied, defiance rising from the ashes of old fears. "I've often felt like I was just your daughter, trying to fit into the framework you've built. But these sculptures are me, they tell my story." He glanced at her, the flicker of realization crossing his face mingled with the shadows of comprehension. For the first time, Lily saw the possibility of a shifting dynamic, one where she was not just defined by her lineage but also by her spirit, her journey. "Tell me your story then," he urged, but his voice held a tentative quality, as if he had not quite stepped over the threshold of vulnerability himself. Or with a deep breath, she embraced the moment, a space to dare. "It's about finding my own identity. I want my art to echo who I am, and not just who you want me to be. There's a freedom I've started to discover." Each word felt like a brushstroke applied to the canvas of their relationship, redefining the lines that had conformed too rigidly for too long. For every inch gained from expression, a neck-craning silence ensued. She feared that the honesty might frighten him away, yet deep inside, she sensed it was necessary. It was this display of resolution that nudged her resolve forward. "I've been thinking about my next project," she continued, finding her momentum. "It's going to pull from my own experiences, use different mediums to portray growth, struggle, and hope, our relationship even." He shifted on his feet, the tension between them palpable yet shifting. Was he contemplating a new engagement, a shared understanding? Or would this remain lodged in unspoken apprehension? Just as the thought ignited hope, her heart sank with the growing realization that not until now had she dared to reveal this layer. But as a faint flicker of a smile crossed her father's lips, she felt a beat of optimism swell within her. "You truly want to delve into this with me?" he asked finally, the hesitance replaced with a cautious curiosity. "I do." For the first time, her heart pulsed with excitement mingled with fear, aware of the unpredictable nature of their impending dialogue. The conversation hung in the air, a delicate balance of daring uncertainty. Yet as they stood there, a daughter ready to turn the page and a father hesitantly reaching across the chasm, the anticipation brewed heavy with the promise of revelation. What would they discover, not only about each other but also about themselves? Would this conversation lead to a new chapter, a fresh palette of possibilities? As the crowd inside erupted with renewed laughter, Lily's heart raced. Her decision to draw the truth into the open felt irrevocable. And yet, the shadows of doubt still lingered. Were they prepared to embrace what lay ahead, or would familiarity pull them back into silence? With a deep breath, she took her father's hand, feeling the jolt of connection ignite sparks of change. "Let's start this journey together." But before they could embark, another friend burst through the door, breathless and wide-eyed. "Lily! You won't believe what just happened." Her pulse quickened. The moment teetered on the brink, and a flood of uncertainty coursed through her veins. Would the distraction derail their nascent conversation, or could it ultimately serve as a catalyst for greater understanding? In the unfolding chaos, Lily stood at a crossroads, poised for change, as possibilities swirled threateningly. Lily's heart raced as her friend burst into the room, the jovial atmosphere around them threatening to drown out the delicate moment she was attempting to create. She felt her grip on her father's hand tighten instinctively, the warmth of his palm steadied her against the rush of emotions. Was this intrusion a sign they weren't ready for deeper connection, or could it be the opening she needed to break through the barriers they had both been intimidated by for so long? Guys!" her friend called, clearly struggling to catch her breath, her expression a frantic mix of excitement and concern. "You need to come outside. Something incredible is happening." Lily exchanged a glance with her father, the question in her eyes evident. Did they abandon their budding intimacy for whatever awaited them outside, or did they choose to stand firm in the space they had created? Almost as if he was reading her mind, her father spoke, his voice firm yet gentle, breaking her reverie. "Let us see what it is," he said, the curiosity piquing as he released her hand momentarily. We can always return to this to your story. Somehow, his search for connection buoyed her spirit. Even amidst the uncertainty of their next steps, they followed their friend out into the brisk evening air, the laughter of their friends cascading like waves around them. But Lily felt disconnected from the moment, her mind racing as she struggled to hold on to the thread of vulnerability they had almost woven together. All the sound and frenzy felt disorienting, amplifying her internal conflict over whether she could truly share her narrative, her struggles, and her evolving identity. As they pushed through the crowd, Lily silently acknowledged that this wasn't just about the moment with her father. A part of her wished to transform her internal tumult into something tangible, a piece of art or a spoken word that delved deep into these personal confrontations. However, each laugh and shout around her felt increasingly distant, leaving her clinging to the fleeting connection made just moments ago. The group gathered outside, and Lily could see the flash of excitement in their eyes. "Look at this!" her friend exclaimed, pointing toward a growing cluster of people. Curiosity mingled with her anxiety, propelling her forward. What awaited was a street performer setting loose a kaleidoscope of colors against the darkening sky, lanterns rising in twinkling spirals into the ether. For just an instant, awe washed over Lily, the artistry of the moment competing with the weight of her unresolved feelings. The performer balanced a precarious stack of glass and metal in a dazzling display, reminiscent of her own work, echoing her phoenix. Yet as beauty blossomed in the night, she felt a flicker of impatience building. Was this the kind of performance that would overshadow her burgeoning narrative with her father? Suddenly emboldened by inspiration, she turned, seeking her father amongst the throng of people. There he stood, engaged in conversation, an easy smile lighting up his face. The realization struck her with clarity: this didn't have to be a distraction, it could be a catalyst for growth. Maybe I should draw from this moment, she thought, envisioning how she could merge the energy surrounding her into her upcoming project. As she began to outline her ideas in her mind, a sense of purpose grounded her. Her struggle wasn't simply about revealing her past, but rather using her experiences to forge something that communicated both her identity and her relationship with her father. Perhaps the vibrant energy swirling around her could filter into her art, shaping it into a multifaceted representation of resilience. Taking a breath filled with newfound determination, she set her eyes back on her father. He glanced over, their gazes connecting in a moment of understanding that transcended words. With renewed energy, Lily spoke into the chaotic landscape, purpose pressing her forward. "When we go back inside, there is something I want to share with you about my project, about our story. And, I think, this might be the perfect inspiration I need." His interest peaked, he nodded, his earlier hesitance replaced with curiosity. Could this be their actual turning point? The adrenaline coursed through her veins, pushing her to engage in the risk of sharing more. As laughter and applause erupted around them, Lily surged ahead, ready to redefine the narrative they had been stuck in. She was prepared to confront her fears, follow the path of vulnerability, and embrace their exploration as an artistic journey. But just as she was ready to pull him inward again, another unexpected interruption arose, one that pulled the attention of the crowd even further. "Hey, everyone! You'll never believe the twist in the story. The performer is actually..." What could possibly unravel next? The impending reveal loomed, thrusting Lily back into the uncertain waters. Was it chaos, or could this usher in the transformation she had long been craving? Lily's heart thrummed in sync with the buzz of the crowd. As much as she remained captivated by the vibrant performance, the mystery ahead of her seemed to cast an even longer shadow across her thoughts. The sudden announcement had sent a ripple of intrigue through the audience, and while she strained to catch the details, her mind twisted in on itself, caught between anticipation and dread. What would the revelation mean? Was it a twist on some grand narrative, akin to her own journey? She yearned for the magic flutter of inspiration, but the echo of uncertainty left her restless as she clung to the threads of her purpose. The flickering lanterns seemed to dance to a rhythm all their own, reflective of her tangled emotions, a harmony of chaos imploring her inward. Could I actually engage with my father amid all this? She wondered, turning her gaze back to him. His face was lively, alight with conversational warmth, but she felt a poignant tug that deeper engagement still lingered out of reach. Determination resided within her form, but it required a stronger foundation to blossom. She had to take the plunge. This moment wasn't about the performer, it was about leveraging her surroundings to propel their own narrative forward. As her gaze slipped back to the captivating display, she saw a deeper story unfolding, a possible pathway for her artistic expression. She envisioned the balancing act of the performer, a metaphor for her own struggles, of finding equilibrium between family connection and self-distance. Could the vulnerability of sharing these experiences ignite the creative spark she craved? The audience was now fully enthralled, inhaling the surge of emotion wrapped in the artscape before them. Each gasp and cheer felt like a reflection of collective human connection, an element she desperately sought to tap into. This was a crossroads. She could either allow herself to melt into the background noise or step forward, forging that moment she had imagined with her father. "I need to harness this energy," she thought, almost audibly. The performance was a backdrop, an encapsulation of all the complexities she desired to share. But how could she communicate this entangled narrative to her father in a way that made him truly see her? She felt a pull, an unmistakable urge to create a sketch, a spoken word, something raw yet polished that could express her essence. The thought of transforming this night into a canvas stirred within her, igniting a fire she had only glimpsed in her earlier moments of courage. As the crowd cheered louder, she squeezed through the mass of bodies, her heart heavy with intention. It wasn't enough to simply share her plans, she had to make them feel them, embody the connection she sought with her father. "This is a story for us, and it begins right here," she reminded herself. Lily approached her father, who seemed momentarily disoriented by the rising energy of the crowd. She could feel the anticipation thickening the space between them as she looked directly into his eyes. "Dad, can we talk now?" "I think I'm ready to show you something important," she said, her voice firm, intermingling with the fading applause around them. His smile deepened, curiosity sparking within him. Yet, before she could share more, the performeress announcement pierced the air again. The twist: she was sold by her father, but this discovery leads to... A tidal wave of gasps cascaded through the spectators. Focus shifted away from Lily, yanking her moment of connection back into an unpredictable tide. Her resolve felt jeopardized. How could a story of despair erupt over her world of burgeoning love? But then it struck like lightning: what if she wove this truth into her own story? Father-daughter relationships can be complex, but they can evolve, Lily reflected internally. Should this fear consume her, or could it be yet another layer of resilience in their shared narrative? As the crowd erupted again, drawing nearer to the revelation unfolding, she sensed an urgency within herself, an impulse to shape this moment into an art form that illustrated her journey, resilience through struggles, and the connections forged through vulnerability. "Dad," she said, lifting her voice above the cacophony. "Let me share my story, our story. I won't be afraid anymore." With that, she resolved to seize the moment. Whatever the performer's revelation held, Lily was ready to face it. The stage was set for her own performance, born from pain and transcendence. As she prepared to delve deeply into the truth of what it meant to be both daughter and artist, as the performer began unveiling the hidden tale, shadows of anticipation cloaked Lily once more. Would the truths revealed offer her strength or stoke her uncertainty? And how would her father respond? The curtain was about to rise on a new chapter, entwining their stories in ways she was only beginning to understand. As Lily stood on the threshold between her past and her future, the world around her pulsated with exuberance. The crowd erupted in applause for the street performer who captivated their attention with intrigue. Yet, the unveiling of the performance bore unsettling familiarity, a stark reflection of her own tumultuous journey. A deep breath steadied her as she embraced the uncertainty that lingered, the prospect of artistic transformation igniting a flame of resilience within her. With her heart pounding heavily against her chest, she scanned the gathering. Her father remained at the periphery, a silent observer shrouded in complexity, both mentor and obstacle, comforted by the familiar facade of disconnection. The tension between them embodied the thickness of years eclipsed by miscommunication and unmet expectations. Should I be affected by the performer's story? She pondered. Already I feel a deep connection, yet the fear of vulnerability still invades my heart. But as the performer revealed profound truths amid spiral performances, echoes of being discounted, and the quest for redemption, Lily realized that the essence of the narrative aligned seamlessly with her own plight. This was not merely entertainment, it resonated. The intensity of the crowd's reactions mirrored the battles she had endured in silence and isolation. I won't let fear confine my story any longer, she thought, feeling the resolve bloom within. The air shimmered vibrantly as she took a step forward, ready to bear her own revelations. A stillness enveloped her as she felt the world come to a halt, the energy hanging in the air ripe for her consumption. "Dad," she called out, her voice cutting through the revelry, intentionally vibrant. "I want to show you my work, show you who I am." She dared to move past the uncertainty, shattering the doubts that had once held her captive. The crowd turned, their curiosity piqued, mirroring her own heartbeat. Her father's expression shifted from curiosity to uncertainty. Did he understand what it meant for her to openly forge her identity? Did he acknowledge the journey she had taken through creative exploration? At that pivotal moment, time stretched, a heartbeat felt alight with possibility. Lily drew a deep breath, centering herself against the encroaching tide of fear. "I've poured my heart and soul into every piece I created," she declared, a fervor igniting her words. "These works are not just sculptures, they're the embodiment of my identity, my struggles, my dreams, our relationship." As she shifted into an explanation, illuminating the intricacies of her art, how each piece reflected elements of growth, hope, and even turbulence her father's curiosity sparked. She pointed out the wild stallion, a symbol of freedom and resilience. "It's a reminder that there is so much more beyond these walls. I long for acceptance, not just from you, but for me to accept myself." In that fierce exchange, she felt the barriers inch closer to shattering. The audience remained engaged, their previous excitement shifted to a palpable silence, anticipating a raw vulnerability that could unravel truths woven in familiar skeins of family dynamics. "How can I help you understand?" she asked, her voice unwavering. "I want to pave the way for both of us, toward a new dialogue." Her father shifted, vulnerability creeping into his expression. Did her words spark recognition? The challenge of transformation loomed, one that could redefine the fabric of their relationship. With a single exhale, she bridged an emotional chasm, tapping into their shared struggles. "I'm not just your daughter. I am Lily, an artist in my own right. I refuse to let my silence be my shackles." In that moment, a flicker of comprehension crossed his eyes, recognition mingled with something deeper. As she revealed more of her journey and her aspirations, she sensed his walls beginning to falter. It was no longer about her right to exist within his world, it was about how they could reinterpret their relationship, fashioning a new path together. As the performance concluded, the adrenaline coursed through her veins, but so did a calm recognition. She had reclaimed her narrative, empowering not just herself but perhaps her father too. As people surrounded her, responding to her story, it became clear that there was strength in sharing vulnerabilities. As weaving together new identities fostered mutual understanding, her father finally stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking into something almost palpable. "Lily," he started, his voice barely a whisper against the backdrop of the evening as chaos, "I see you now." His words reverberated within her with a cadence of hope and affirmation, bridging the chasm of silence that had long dictated their existence. "This is the beginning for both of us," she whispered, her heart surging against the backdrop of mingled voices and vivid colors that pulsed around them. The whispers of celebration began to grow, the tone of acceptance blending with acknowledgement. With renewed confidence solidifying her resolve, Lily understood the true power of art. Not only could it yield personal resolutions but also mend the intricate threads of family dynamics. As they stood there, poised on the brink of evolving understanding, she knew she had not only expressed herself but forged their collective narrative anew. This was only the beginning, a journey toward reshaping her identity and rebuilding the fragile bonds of love and acceptance. A solid confidence settled within her, one that would draw them closer and keep the shadows of doubt at bay. Now, it was time to embrace the future, not as a figure overshadowed by family complexities, but as a recognized artist ready to sculpt her reality with unyielding resolve, intertwining the legacy of passion, vulnerability, and ultimately, acceptance. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, making a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to incredible transformations just like this. Don't wait even one more second to share your passion for stories of personal overcoming and growth.